for transparency within the system. We are doing our best to keep the people of Maine informed of our decision making and how we are moving today and how we are moving forward tomorrow. Let me link that to the fact that I'm very grateful for the leadership that has been demonstrated by the governor in her handling of this tragedy that's playing itself out throughout the world. I think Maine has done an exemplary job in preparing us. I think the numbers bear that out. I think the rallying of forces, private sector, public sector, working together to make sure that our hospital systems can stand up to the challenge. And quite frankly, the observance by so many people in Maine of the rules and regulations that the governor has put out there speak volumes about the quality of the people of Maine and their willingness to sacrifice on behalf of the greater good. I would also like to say that I'm particularly proud of our presidents, our faculty, our staff, and our students of the University of Maine System, and their ability to respond, again, to this human tragedy playing itself out all over the world. But we also need to communicate about the future and what will happen when this pandemic is a memory as opposed to something that we're living through today. And toward that end, we thought we should communicate on an active basis with the broader public of Maine about what our plans are. And I want to be very plain spoken in this. We are planning on being open to in-classroom learning at the end of the summer for the fall semester. That is our plan. It is our operating assumption at the moment. Now, that doesn't mean that we're not aware of other challenges, because for us to be open to classroom learning, as well as other modalities, we have to be in compliance with the rules and regulations as they will be defined by the governor and others in the state. But no one should be confused about what our absolute desire is. And our desire is to be open to classroom learning. It's also tied with the way that we've treated students in this very difficult time. When we closed our dormitories housing 5,800 people, we said on the very day that we would be closing that we would return money to the families that had paid for that room and that board. We accomplished that by March 31st in near record time on a national basis of any system of our size. We also have done our utmost best to meet students where they are and how they learn. It's one of the reasons that we've been a vital partner in standing up some 200 hotspots throughout the state of Maine, so our students and high school students and students of other universities would have a place to go and be able to tie in to the teachings that are taking place by the institutions that are providing that teaching. It's also why all of our campuses have actively participated in standing up services in support of our response to the epidemic. And I'm very proud of all of our universities. Going forward, I want to be very clear that we will be driven by science in making final decisions. So we look to the state as an authority, and we look to science as driving our future endeavors. And toward that end, I did ask, and the University of Maine and Joan Farina-Mundy, the president of the University of Maine, has made some folks available to us to make sure that we're on the straight and narrow and being guided by that very science and what it tells us about the state of the epidemic at any given point in the state of Maine, particularly looking forward to our in-classroom learning beginning at the end of the summer. And we will continue to communicate with the governor's office, with the public, to make presidents available for discussion purposes and to answer the media's questions as we go forward. Toward that end, I'd like to invite President Farina-Mundy to say a few things about the preparations of her university, as well as the active participation of her university in helping the state recover. President.
Thank you, Chancellor. This really is a a disturbing time in so many ways and a gratifying time as we look to the wonderful leadership that we are seeing from the governor, from the chancellor and his staff, from all of our colleagues across the state in higher education. At the University of Maine, we are very focused, along with the chancellor and everyone else, on the planning activities for a
How was that?
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Safe reopening. In September, I want to emphasize that I think it's fair to say that all of us, we have been open, we have been operational, simply in a new mode over these past several weeks, delivering instruction to students, continuing with research, and very heavily engaged in public service across the system. Relative to the chancellor's points about science, I want to indicate that we have researchers across the system and many here at UMaine who are specifically focused on a number of ways of addressing the challenges that we face for safety. One group that I will point you to is a group of people in the biological and biomedical science fields, and some of them are also in engineering, looking at the scientific literature internationally daily and creating briefing papers that we're posting on the UMaine website that point to a variety of developments in addressing the safety concerns as well as other features around the virus. Everyone from virologists who are looking at what we know about testing and the ways in which Maine is participating, to immunologists who can look at the ways in which this disease might be prevented in the future and who can look to other scientists to see what they're doing, to engineers who study sensors and the ways in which they can be detecting aerosol spread through the air. So the point of a safe reopening that is based on science is a great fit for our university system. Our students and our faculty, I think, across the system are eager to be engaged.
Thank you. I would like to turn to Becky White, the head of the University of Maine, Augusta, for her comments and to tell us how they're doing there with their institution.
Thank you, Chancellor. I'm happy to be with you today. UMA is a distance serving institution primarily. We have campuses in Augusta and Bangor, as well as 8 centers and 30 sites located throughout the state of Maine. About half of our students already take classes online, so we had a very smooth transition to that modality, but moving all of the staff online also happened pretty quickly. And we moved to set up virtual ways that our students could connect with us, including holding open forums where they can tune in and ask questions about new policies that we've been implementing to ease their transition, such as the pass-fail policy. And also setting up virtual chats with all of our student-facing departments. Admissions for next year continues to move forward in a very positive way at UMA as well as our sister institutions. And we have all made a number of accommodations to ensure that students who might not be able to get their official transcripts from their high school can still be accepted and move forward in the admittance process. We have set up at UMA, for example, live chats with our admissions instructors, virtual drop-in meetings where we get 10 or a dozen students who show up to find out more about the institution, as well as one-on-one counseling sessions via Zoom. We also have been working at UMA with an online new student orientation for years, and some of our sister institutions have very quickly adapted to offer similar things. So as much as possible to keep that college experience moving forward, whether you're a traditional age student or an adult who, because of the economy or because of things that you want to achieve in your life, have decided this is the time for you to come back to school. The University of Maine's public universities are available to help you.
And I'd like to turn to Glenn Cummings, the head of the University of Southern Maine. I'd also like to publicly thank him for the efforts that he has made on behalf of the homeless population in the greater Portland area and the willingness to play a role in housing a portion of that population through these very difficult times. Glenn.
Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you everybody for being here today. I just want to echo the Chancellor's warm welcome to everybody this fall. We are expecting to be open for business. We will be open for business, and we want to do it in the most welcoming possible way. And I appreciate the Chancellor setting that tone. At USM, we are what I would call a hybrid in the sense that we have a long history of both online experience and we have hybrid classes that go a little bit both ways. And we have a long history, of course, of face-to-face, and so that certainly helps us. But across the system, everybody is finding a way to deliver services for this fall. There are a couple of things that we're doing that I think, based on just how severe this crisis is. The first is we know that people are evaluating their finances, and so we've extended to June 30th financial aid eligibility for students rather than a May 1 deadline. That gives us more opportunity for us to help meet their financial package as it changes almost daily. And secondly, we have been moving very clearly towards really making ourselves even more attractive to what we call a welcome home scholarship for students who may be going out of state, spending a lot of money, not necessarily getting any stronger academic quality by any means. And we know that we have, 250 very skilled PhD level professors that can help them, and that many families have to make those tight, difficult financial choices. So we've been working on a strategy to give scholarship for students who may be spending a lot of money out of state right now, would feel better being closer to home, want to make sure that their financial debt that they're accruing for higher education is not excessively burdened, and therefore looking at us. So we're joining with the rest of the Maine system, the other presidents and the chancellor, to try to find ways to be attractive under these difficult circumstances. And we're very happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. I'm going to open up for questions, but let me assure you that each one of our universities is prepared to meet students where they are and address the needs that students will present themselves in light of the epidemic playing itself out in our nation at this time. Most appreciative of these presidents joining me as a cross-section of our presidents. Obviously, it does not include all of our institutions, but as we go forward, we will make our other presidents available for these sorts of discussions, and I'm happy to open it up for questions for any of us. Pat?
Yeah, Chancellor Malloy, I'm wondering what timetable are you on to be able to say to students, you're coming back to campus at the end of August?
So Pat, what we're saying today is we plan on that. And that's our number one operating assumption. It does not mean that we're not making other plans, as I acknowledged. We're also actively following the potential development of therapies and vaccines, for instance, and the impact that they might have on our ability to respond by opening up our classrooms. So it is for the moment, a moving target. For the moment, I suspect that in the coming weeks, if not month, we'll have a better and clearer answer to that question for you. We will always be guided by the leadership of the governor and with respect to the civil authority of the state. But we're going to do everything we can to meet students the way they want to be met. And for many of those students, that's in a classroom. Obviously, you've heard from several of our institutions that have extensive online operations freestanding prior to the epidemic. So Pat, I'm not ducking your question. I don't have a definitive date, but I would say that we'll know more in 30 days than we know today. But I want to be very clear, because I know other universities have taken a different tact. We very much want to be open to traditional learning styles come the end of the summer.
Thank you.
Additional questions? I don't have everyone on my screen, and I know there are other people if you want to speak up.
Yeah, Chancellor Malloy, this is Robbie Feinberg with Maine Public Radio. I wanted to ask a little bit about what conversations are around what classes could actually look like in terms of if there's talk about having social distancing guidelines, limiting the size of classes, if there was in-person instruction in the fall, what that would be like.
I'm sorry, could you rephrase? I'm not sure I followed the question. If we have in classroom offer, and so I'll take a shot at it. And if I've mistaken my understanding of the question, you'll forgive me and re-ask it. Again, we are to the extent that we are able, we personally will be able, but civil authorities will dictate to some extent whether we can or cannot open up classrooms. But it is our intention, and we are operating as if we are in a position to do that. Should we not be in a position, obviously, we will take all the lessons that we're learning right now as we transition literally on a dime to 100% virtual classrooms. We'll take that experience, we'll refine it, we'll get better at it, and we'll be in a position to offer it to students. Most of our students live in Maine, and so we know that we have that obligation to be in that position to make sure that we can provide that. People are on timelines. People want to start their careers. We know that delaying the completion of a graduation has profound financial impact on the families and on that the family supporting that student and on that student with respect to their future earnings. We are going to do everything in our toolkit to make sure that students are successful, that they're timely successful, that they enter the workforce as soon as possible. At the University of Maine, for instance, not only have we witnessed the completion early of nursing instruction, but plans are underway to see whether we can help students over the summer be ready to finish their programs 6 months earlier or 5 months earlier than they might otherwise for the next class, so that people are available to the broader community to be helpful in handling the health needs of the state of Maine. Did that answer your question?
And Chancellor, yeah, I think I might not have clarified that well enough. My question was literally about the actual literal number of people within a classroom. If that's kind of being discussed, of saying maybe we don't have a lecture hall with 100 people in it, what will that be like?
I will turn to Joan Farini-Mundy to answer that. That's one of the reasons, and I want to be very clear, and I'm sure she'll be in agreement with me, that we want the science to dictate those answers, as well as civil authorities who may want to be heard on that as well. But I'll turn it to Dr. Farini-Mundy.
Sure, and I would just echo what the Chancellor has said. It will be the science, and we have started the process here at the University of Maine of taking a careful look at our fall calendar so that we know something as practical as how many large lectures do we have planned at particular times, and what other kinds of spaces are available if we find that we need to disperse students into smaller groups or create more distance. So all of the very preliminary work that we need to undertake to be sure that we can meet whatever the conditions are to enable our students to be here safely. We're starting that process right now. So it could look a bit different, but that will depend on the guidance of the state and the federal government and the science.
Glenn or Becky, do you have any comments on that point?
Chancellor, I would jump in. Again, UMA is a little bit of a different animal than some of our sister institutions. So we do a lot of classes in a flex mode, meaning you can attend it live, you can attend it remotely live, or you can view the class later at home if you choose. And we suspect that this technology is what's going to help us ensure that we're able to continue to deliver instruction this fall just as it is today, in that students who might not feel comfortable coming back to class yet because of an underlying condition would have the option to continue attending online if they chose. For those, and we have quite a few veteran students who really want that personal interaction. So for those who want to attend class, to do so in more limited numbers. So all of us across the system are doing that sort of thinking of, are we going with Model A, Model B, or Model C when it comes to fall? We want to be open to allow students on campus at will, but if we have to go with one of the others, we're going to be prepared to flex our own schedules in order to be able to do that. President
Cummings?
Thank you. I would only add, Robbie, that we are definitely looking at all possible models for how we use some face-to-face and then integrate it probably with, again, some delivery integration through digitization. For example, if you had a relatively large lecture hall, and I think you've heard versions of this already. If you had a relatively large lecture hall, you might say that students A will only come in, or 1/3 will only come in on Monday, 1/3 will come in on Wednesday, 1/3 will come in on Friday in person. That way there is connection, there is a sense of getting, particularly around labs and those kind of things, if it's possible to do that in smaller groups. And then while those lectures are going on, other students would access that through digitization, through a virtual experience. So everything's on the table. We are looking at all possible options to deliver both a level of feeling like they're connected to the university, especially if they want face-to-face, and at the same time maximizing safety.
Any other questions? I know you folks have deadlines and the sort, but we're happy to handle one or two more if there are any.
Hi, Joe from Channel 8.
Hi, Joe.
Sorry, Tom, didn't mean to interrupt, but
no worries.
Just a quick question. Are there any specific steps that you feel you'll have to have in place from a healthcare perspective? Any specific services that will be different from the normal services, or is that guidance that's going to come down the road from the CDC?
Well, the answer to that is there will be differences, and I can't give you all of the differences, but since we won't assume that 100%, let's assume a vaccination becomes available. It may not become available in time for everyone to receive that vaccination. We'll have to make arrangements on our campuses, should the vaccination be available, to make sure that people have access to that, staff, faculty, and students. So we have to be in a position to move rather quickly on developments that science might drive. I think each one of the presidents has addressed what will happen with respect potentially to classroom size, and we are prepared and preparing to address that issue. So I think that if you leave this discussion with any thought, it is that we are working through all of those issues, and our desire is to open in a traditional sense, but we will be ready come what may. And we'll do it in such a way as science is driving our calculations.
Thank you.
And I thought somebody got run over by Joe. Was that Tom?
Yeah, I have a quick question about when it comes to students who will be graduating from high school, going into colleges, how is this going to affect them? They're looking at going into all new colleges here. So are you guys going to have to possibly tell them that we're looking at opening, but it might be continuing to be all online? What is the situation for that?
Our first message is that we intend to be open. Our second message is that should we not be, we'll be ready to open. The question is, will our science, will our civil authorities appropriately be willing to allow us to open? That's a separate question. We are ready to open. We will, I should say, be ready to open for the fall semester. We have already said that all of our courses offered in the spring and summer will be online. So we've taken that step. We're waiting for additional guidance. We're waiting for additional science to speak to us on this subject. But I want to be very clear. The message today is we are prepared to be open in September, should we be allowed to, and we will be prepared to meet our students in other ways should we not be allowed to do that. That's a different position than some other universities are currently taking. We did take the precaution of moving all of our spring and summer offerings online already. And we'll continue to keep you posted on that and to answer your questions as we move forward, Tom.
The only thing I would add is that many students and parents across the state are asking us, first of all, exactly what the question that we've answered here, which is, are you going to be open? The second question that we're getting is, are my students or your students going to be safe? Am I going to be safe if I come to you? And we are also creating a set of guidelines and a set of assumptions about what life will be post-COVID-19 that shows that we will take very seriously the precautions of medical advice. And I think that's what parents and students really want to hear from us. We want to come back. We want to be part of your campus. We want you to be fully open. Show us what you'll also do to make sure that our children and I as a student are safe. And we're coming up with those guidelines, and so far they have been well received, and people are delighted that we have a very optimistic view, and conditional upon any kind of medical counter advice, our plan is to move forward as we would in a safe way.
Let me also add again that the state of Maine has been in top tier with respect to how they've handled this virus. And it is reassuring to be here in Maine with the leadership that has accomplished that. Anything else? Well, listen, I want to thank you all. I know this was difficult to arrange, and we didn't start right on time, but I do intend to make sure that we are open to you, that we're answering questions. We'll have other presidents made available to you at other conferences in the future. We'll answer those questions or give updates at that time to the questions that have already been asked. Have a great day, and thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks.
all.